You cannot get through a single day without having an impact on the world around you. Everything you do makes a difference. You just have to decide what kind of difference you want to make.
I was chair of the VOCA committee, the Victims of Crime Act committee, and also was on the personnel committee. And we had the pleasure of interviewing Max. And I tell him all the time, and I probably shouldn't because, you know, he might get the big head, that hands down, he was the best person that we interviewed. He was confident, he was articulate, we knew that this organization was going to be in the best hands because he was so impressive. And not one day since he was offered that position and said yes, has anyone been anything but proud of him. He has been the best of the best.
When Max came on board with the commission, there was a lot of disruption, feuding between agencies, lawsuits going on, people being highly critical of other agencies, and it was a tough time. And so for him to recognize the positives that every agency had to offer, and to work with that, and to be respectful and mindful of their assets, and to provide a venue for them to be productive together has allowed us to develop projects that we wouldn't even have dreamed of 20 years ago. The fact that we have multidisciplinary teams in almost every county. The fact that we have so many advocacy centers. The commission didn't start the advocacy centers, but supports the advocacy centers in every way that they can.
I was green. I had no idea what I was doing, other than I just knew we had to have a safe place for children. And I think that's one of the first things I remember about Max. You know, when I was thinking of this and thinking, well, welcoming, you know, Max was just so kind, and the fact that I had no idea what I was doing, it didn't matter. And he was going to help us find resources and whatever we needed.
One of the things that led to the growth of the CAC movement during the time that I was director was the improved relationships between the commission, the Arkansas Commission on Child Abuse, Rape, and Domestic Violence, improved relationships with the Division of Child and Family Services and its new leadership. We saw a lot of growth, a lot of, tightening partnerships, more efficiently run programs. We also received a lot of help from Max and the Commission with the effort to increase prevention education.
My working relationship with Max has evolved over the 17 years that I've known him, because I was young enough when I came to work for him that I barely had a fully formed brain. I point that out to him a lot, more in the earlier years than in the more recent years that I've started, having the gray hair sprouting out. But my working relationship with Max is one that is built on trust. And I feel like I probably speak for most of the staff, current and past, to say that it's one built on trust. And part of that comes from his willingness to be so open with his time. I don't remember ever, in the time that I've known Max, of somebody walking in his office to tell him something or ask him something or just to sit down and talk to him and hearing him say, I'll be with you in a few minutes, or can I come get you shortly? His door was always open, and he meant it.
Well, first of all, I have never heard Max say a bad word about anybody, ever. and he can find a way to set something up or explain something or talk to someone about it in a way that folks are on board. He can do that. He manages to stay out of the little squabbles that agencies have with each other. He gives them the big picture, which is what you have to do to collaborate. You have to look at the big picture where you all agree, and he's just really good at doing that. And in a really charming way, just very pleasant. And I would guess that people who thought they were going to disagree with Max left smiling and not knowing what they disagreed about.
I think Max is a great unifier in having all child welfare meet together. That was always something that he and I discussed, was how much repetition there was in the child welfare system, or how much agencies creating a relationship together could become more efficient.
Max improves so many relationships because he doesn't have a personal agenda or prejudices against people. He just likes you. He likes everyone. And I think y'all know that. I mean, it just shows. I mean, he does not get into the negativity that sometimes we all feel when someone's, not acting exactly the way we think they should. He doesn't show it.
I think a lot of people who even come from other agencies, they get this, oh my gosh, somebody's here to tread on my, territory. But I kept telling them, and I would even go back to meetings after I had retired and say, you've got to understand the history. I love to go back to the new directors and say, I need you to understand who Max is and the kind of staff he has and what his purpose is. And, I felt very honored that I was given opportunities now and then to just kind of go back and keep bringing up that history.
He showed up. Max showed up for the child welfare system. He showed up. He listened. He made notes. He decided what kind of legislation can impact. Who do I talk to? He kept trying. He never stopped. He was like the Energizer Bunny. He just kept going.
My concern is that today CAC directors have lost some of that history, and they don't know what a huge part the commission played in the role. We would not be where we are today had it not been for Max and the commission and the fact that he believed in us.
I can remember a meeting where we were meeting with some governmental agencies that were working to help cut extra costs. It was typically a room full of women when you're talking child welfare, and Max was one of the few men present. But he looked to this governmental agency and he pointed to one side of the room and he said, "These women ultimately don't care what hoops you must jump through. They are concerned with the safety of these kids. They don't care about your budget constraints and the extra work you have to put in."
Max has an incredible amount of dedication to child victims. I know he also has this for rape and sexual assault victims and domestic violence victims, but I know more about the child abuse victims because has been my role working for him for the past 17 years. And I can tell you from just my personal experience, I adopted 3 kids from foster care. And he's been amazing. He's been amazing. He's so supportive of all of our families and of everybody putting their family first and us just figuring out what we needed to do to make everything else work. But the number of times that I've talked to him about things going on with my kids, that he's been able to remind me of how far they've come. With regard to victims, it's, in just generally speaking, child victims, it's that times 1,000. Max Snowden has always been and will always be for the underdog. And the people that we work with, especially the kids who we work with, are always the underdogs.
He didn't ever do anything to say, oh, this is about Max. And so I think it makes it even more special that it is about Max. And that I know who Max is from the sense that he's very humble about it and he's very appreciative, but he would say it's not necessary. You know, I'm going to do what I do, and whether or not anyone notices it, I don't need an applause. But I think our community, our CAC community, our CASA community, our guardian ad litems, our law enforcement, they need to be able to see the Maxes and to know the heart of people like that.
This is recognition by the people who understand the significance of working in child abuse. He is being recognized by people who really understand what he's accomplished and who appreciate his hard work and him being part of the team with him.
I think that Max has tried over the last 20, 25 years to take it a little bite at a time. And so I would say that what has been built upon by Max now should continue to take it a little bite at a time, because we all know this isn't something that can be fixed. It has to be readjusted, it has to be evaluated, and that's what he did along the way. And that's how I think you keep building in the future.
Can I imagine the commission without Max? No, because Max is the commission. And of course, I have not had the privilege of working with some of the other newer staff that have come on board. But one of the things that I do know about legacies and someone who's actually stayed as long as what Max has been there, there will always be that aroma of Max, because he's laid a foundation and he's been there and trained people, and there are still people I know who are on staff who've worked with Max for a long time.
To recognize all the things he's done, we recognize a lot of the things he's done, but he's so good at being behind the scenes that I think we're going to have an adjustment. We've got a great person in place and we're going to be fine, but we'll all miss Max.
My hope, and Max knows this, and he kind of pushes me off by saying, we'll talk about that later, Ginger, we'll do that. But he has so many attributes, and I work in a field that's very serious. We have to respond to mass violence. And my hope is that I'll be able to give him a little mentoring, and he knows, and so does the Department of Justice, that he is on a short list that we hope that he's going to come forward and be one of the consultants too. There is no one better suited in Arkansas than Max. He's amazing.
I am such a creature of habit, such a creature of habit. And I've never known the commission without Max. So imagining the commission without Max literally gave me hives for a few months before he retired. It was very difficult to imagine. But I've had the opportunity to watch his relationship with our new director, who is someone who worked for him for a decade and a half. So they already had a relationship, but I've had the opportunity to watch how their relationship has changed, and it makes it a little easier to imagine it. But the reality is the commission is never going to be without Max. Let me tell you why. He was there yesterday. He was there the day before. I know he was there at least 3 times last week. Max isn't going anywhere. He doesn't work there anymore, but he still shows up. Somebody calls or texts, if you're around, could you come by? I have a question, or can I call you? And then you just look up and there he is. So I don't think I really have to worry about imagining a commission without Max. It's not going to happen.
I'm glad to be here once again. It seems to me that I have participated in this in all, if not most, of the videos for the winners of the Malone Award, and I'm always happy to do that. It is so easy to talk about the people that have received that recognition, and I'm glad that I'm able to do that. I told a friend of mine the other day, talking about somebody else is far easier than me talking about myself. And so being on the other side of that recognition process has been an interesting experience, and one that I'm glad came, but will probably not come again. Also, I wanted to say my voice has really gone downhill as I have gotten older, and I tell my friends that I started off sounding like Vito Corleone, but now I sound like a pubescent boy, so which has far less gravitas than Vito does. But I won't talk long, but I do want to make a few brief comments that I think are important to share with you. During my career, it has been my privilege to be in the company of caring, capable, and in many ways courageous people. My greatest reward actually is to have shared my career with many of you that I count as friends. Let me share some random thoughts, at least, that I have come to accept over the course of the rewarding career that I've been blessed to have. Harry Potter and Gabby Giffords admonish us to be brave in the face of challenge or opportunity. And I would say, let's embrace that encouragement, not for ourselves, but for the children and the family of those that we work with and serve each day. And there are countless people that would include. Unlike Harry and Gabby, we don't face evil wizards or maniacal killers. Our demons are ill-conceived legislation and poorly thought-out policy and inadequately trained and underpaid workers. And all of you are familiar with the woeful lack of resources. While we have some of the answers and a whole lot of dedication, there must be a clarion call to continue the search for answers and remedies. And it's important to be optimistic, because optimism allows us to maintain a bond with what's possible. What might be, though it may seem we are more often faced with the impossible. I do want to thank all of you for the good work that you do every day, and for the opportunity that I have had to share the work on our common goals. Thank you so much.